Entering into his rest is one of the most underappreciated aspects of empowerment. And it's one that doesn't come natural to us, which is why we need continual reminders. And as we'll see in a moment, and this will seem a little counterintuitive, there are times where entering his rest requires an absolute warrior mentality. Hebrews reminds us to be diligent to enter into his rest. So what does rest mean? Rest is not necessarily the absence of activity, the absence of effort, and it is absolutely not passive. After 6 days, after God had created heaven and earth, he rested. It wasn't that God was tired and needed to recuperate, but rather it was the recognition he had accomplished and fulfilled all that he set out to do. His work was done. Likewise for us, entering into his rest is the recognition when our work is done. What's our role rather than what's his? That looking for empowerment and supernatural results is not by what we accomplish. And so a way to think about entering his rest is twofold. One, what is it we're relying on? Whatever the situation, circumstances, challenge, before we go any further, what are we relying on? What is God's promise saying? That we put the foundation, that we're looking to him as the foundation for the result. And once we have that foundation, that rock that we can stand on, then we respond to his direction. Again, it's not necessarily the absence of activity or effort, but it's effort in response to his leading. But it does require that warrior mentality, because what happens when we're not seeing the results in whatever the situation? Now, Hebrews, the context was that God's people, he is bringing them through the wilderness with this amazing promise to take them to the land of promise, this place of blessing. But the process didn't look the way they expected. Yes, he was meeting all of their needs. He was guiding them. He was taking them to places where the resources were. But the process didn't look the way they thought it should, that made sense to them. And so they were so often frustrated. And it's easy for us to slip into frustration or disappointment, discouragement, when we're looking at the circumstances. Or what might be worse is for some of us to slide into what I call striving. Striving is where we then, whether we recognize it or not, begin to try to work it out with our own abilities, our strength, trying to make something happen. Or have you ever fallen into that trap of starting to question, is there something I'm doing wrong? What do I have to do to please God? Rather than entering into that rest. Allowing God, if there's correction, alignment that needs to happen, trusting the Holy Spirit to bring that to your attention. That unless we have a promise, a principle to rest on, then we're really more in hope than we are in faith. So get that rock, get that foundation, that building block that you can work with. And from there, then respond to God's direction. And one of the things that comes with time and maturity is recognizing when to stop, when to wait, when you've done what he's directed you to do. And now then, until he gives you new direction, we're relying on him for the results. And that warrior mentality, my friend, I've told this story before, my young friend down in Mexico, he's a gifted evangelist. And some time ago, he was expressing his frustration. He at times felt like he was letting God down because he was doing his part, but so often he didn't see the expected results, the expected outcome. And I had to remind him that one plants, another waters, but it's God who gives the increase. His role is simply to respond when those circumstances, situations arise, to respond with what he knows his calling is. And then you rest. You leave the result to God. And when you do see those results, you rejoice. But when you don't, that warrior mentality continues to rest, reminds you that you have done your part. The rest is in God's hands. And that you're not going to enter into frustration, discouragement, striving, but rather you're going to just rest, enter into his rest. Entering into his rest is a superpower. It's something we must practice continually, that we need to make as a lifestyle. That it's only by relying on God and responding to his direction that we see those truly amazing outcomes. And God is looking for, this is a season when we need those extraordinary, supernatural outcomes more than ever. And it won't be by our amazingness, but rather that we root our faith in God's promises. We are absolutely convinced of their reliability. And then we just simply respond to his direction. And in those times when we don't seem to be getting direction, he's not drawing our attention to something, rather than trying to make something happen, we continually just focus on him. Remember, even when we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. So today, where are areas where you can begin to practice entering into his rest, relying on his promises and his principles, and then just responding to his direction?